Good evening. Welcome to the Town Hall meeting for the Oconee County Board of Commissioners. This is our first one of 2024, so thank you for coming out on a cold night. Our format for town halls is we'll talk a little bit about some items of interest. We're going to start with talking about the tax exemptions that will be on your ballot on May 21st. It's a very important vote for taxpayers. We will make sure to get out as much information as we can about that. We'll open up to any questions and then we'll let y'all talk about what you want to talk about tonight. With that, we'll go ahead and start with the proposed tax exemption changes. So we've been approached over the last several years about making changes to senior exemptions from our citizens. So we took a look at those about 2 years ago now. We met with our local delegation and the tax commissioner to talk about our existing exemptions and ideas on what we could possibly change. And then we also met with Oconee County Board of Education to talk about those exemptions as well. So these exemptions will apply to school taxes as well as commission taxes. Our current exemptions are rather confusing. You have to know about them. Number one, you have to come in and file an application with the tax commissioner. And then some of those actually really need to be audited, and we just don't have the staff in the tax commissioner's office to do some of that. We really have a lot of citizens didn't even know they could do any of these exemptions at all. We had a former employee that worked here for 16 years and didn't know he could freeze his tax assessment at age 65 with an application. So what we're trying to do is lower your final taxable value for all primary residences by increasing the homestead exemptions and also automatic application of freezing taxes for those at 65 and older, freezing assessments, I'm sorry, and also an additional homestead exemption for those when they reach 75. Right now, the homestead exemption for homeowners in Oconee County is $2,000. That is $2,000 coming off your assessed value, and that is a state minimum. So what we're asking to do is take that from $2,000 to $5,000 beginning January 1 of 2025. And then in 2035, we'll increase that from $5,000 to $10,000. Senior exemption on January 1st, if anybody in your household, the husband and wife team or the homeowners, either one of them are 65, will automatically freeze your tax assessment on that January 1st. So there'll be no application process, nothing. You just automatically get the tax value freeze. Saying that right, your assessment value will not change. Then on January 1st, if any one of the property owners turns 75, you get an additional $10,000 homestead exemption on top of the changes that we're making. We do have some senior exemptions that are income-based, and those will sunset. So anybody who's getting that exemption will continue to get that exemption until they're no longer qualified to receive that exemption. So the referendum will be on the May 21st ballot, and there's going to be 10 ballot questions. So we're having to repeal the laws that exist now and then reinitiate the exemptions. And we have to do that not only for the Board of Commissioners side, but we also have to do it for the Board of Education. So some of the questions are the same. The only difference is one says Board of Education and one says Board of Commissioners. So all 10 ballot questions must pass for any of this to go into, come to be. When you see those exemptions, all 10 must be voted yes. So you really need to help us get everybody educated that they like these changes and every one of these need to be voted yes during the ballot process. So our first question is related to House Bill 752. This repeals the property valuation freeze for homeowners 65 and older that requires an active application. So that is being taken away, and then we'll be adding the one where you get it automatically. So it'll be seamless for those who are on a freeze at age 65 now. They won't have to do anything to continue that exemption. Next is House Bill 763. All homeowners 75 and older receive an additional $10,000 exemption for county government taxes. Okay, so that's our side of the equation here. You're voting to, when somebody turns 75, to give them $10,000 off the assessed value. Again, that must be voted yes for any of this to happen. House Bill 764, all homeowners 65 and older will automatically have their property values frozen to the current year for the county government tax. Must be voted yes. What it means, House Bill 765 repeals the current county government income-based exemption of $15,000 for homeowners 65 and older. So that one, you get an additional $15,000 drop. But when you look at freezing your value at 65 versus taking the $15,000, that will almost double that exemption. So anybody who's under this exemption and goes to the automatic freeze at 65 will receive a higher benefit dollar-wise. House Bill 766, this is for school taxes. It changes the current school exemption from $2,000 to $5,000 for homestead and increases it to $10,000 in 2035. Must be voted yes along with these others to make any of these go in. House Bill 767, all homeowners 65 and older will automatically have their property values frozen for the current school year's taxes. That's the school board side of the one we just read. That will have to be voted yes with these others in order for any of these to be put in place. House Bill 768 allows homeowners 65 or older that are currently receive the income-based full exemptions to continue, and the measure will be sunset. So that's what I'm talking about. If you got an exemption now, that will continue in the income base until you're no longer qualified to have that exemption. House Bill 769, this is for county government taxes, changes the current county exemption from $2,000 to $5,000 for homestead, and also goes to $10,000 in 2035. House Bill 770 is for school taxes. Homeowners 75 and older receive an automatic additional exemption of $10,000. And then House Bill 791 repeals the current school tax income-based exemption of $15,000 for homeowners 65 and older. And that will automatically go to the property assessment freeze. That's the 10. Again, if any one of these fails, then we lose the ability to put these in place. Basically, for every homeowner that's eligible for homestead exemption, your exemption will go from $2,000 to $5,000, and 10 years later, go to $10,000. They're automatically at age 65 without any action from the property owner. You get a property assessment freeze at age 65. At age 75, we'll automatically go to an additional $10,000 homestead exemption. And anybody with an income-based exemption for a full exemption will continue to receive that until they're no longer qualified. So nobody will be hurt by this. We feel like we'll hit a lot more property owners with this program. Any questions about the homestead changes? Yes, sir. I'll come to the microphone. We have some people that are watching online. They like to be able to hear what you're saying. State your name and address, please. I'm
Stephen Elshire, Oconee, 1151 Lake Warwick Drive. Okay, so I just have a question.
Okay.
Is this a statewide thing or a local thing only?
This is local only.
Okay, because I'm not an economist, but this seems like it tends to favor old folks like me and will hurt younger folks.
I don't think it will hurt because we do have you're going from 2,000 to 5,000 for everybody, and then you go to the 10,000 10 years later. We are giving a little additional benefit to senior citizens to help the property.
And if someone looks at that 10,000 school thing, they're going to go nuts. I mean, that's a big number. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's 10,000 on the value, just not 10,000 off your tax bill if you're paying that much. It's 10,000 off the value. No.
Assessment. I guess the assessment. That brings me to my question, Victoria Cruz. I live in Lake Wellbrook, Oconee County. And yeah, my question is, how are you going to educate voters on this? They're going to look at this and their minds are just going to explode. So what does the board plan to do to educate? I mean, I'll tell everybody I can that it's really simple.
It is simple. I don't find.
Just
that-
vote
it-
yes
yeah,
on everything, correct?
I don't find it that complicated. We're increasing the tax exemption for all property owners. 100-something%
No,
immediately.
no. I
And-
understand. The
all
base,
that's-
the
it's just-
basis for it is
Yes.
wonderful, but how are you gonna let people who don't come to these meetings? I mean, there's a
So we'll do
lot.
a similar to like when we did T-Splosh. We'll do a lot of education on the social media. We're going out, I spoke at the Rotary Club just earlier this week. We're gonna get out as much as we can, just talking through what the changes are and why it's important to vote yes for all 10.
Okay, will you go to the political parties as well and
Absolutely.
make sure
I've
that
already
they?
been- I've already been approached from the Republican Party about speaking. And
Okay.
I can definitely go to the Democratic Party at any time they would.
So it will be the Board of Commissioners doing the educating and not, say, the Board of Elections?
No, Board of Elections is not involved in that at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you very much.
Come up, James.
Thank you all for having these meetings open where we can voice ourselves. The percentage of us old folks, what percent of us are really in the county? It's more young folks with children and all that, I would take. So it shouldn't make that big impact. I would take it that y'all also are gonna probably put this in a sample ballot in the paper and all that, that people can look at.
Typically, there is a sample ballot that's put out there. We hope to do a lot more before then, but
I commend y'all on having these open meetings.
thank you. Yes, sir.
This gets back to I'm Will York from Lake Point Drive in Oconee County. Back to the question about education, it seems possible, may not be likely, that one or two of these will fail and the rest will pass. And I could see if that occurred and they just went in, they weren't connected to each other, that could either be really great for people like me, old people, or it could be really bad for old people like me, or it could just be really bad for everybody. So what happens if that's the way the votes come out, that
So-
some pass and some don't? Do they all go down if one fails?
Yes,
Because they all automatically fail if one fails.
that's correct.
You can't pass one and not,
That's
okay.
right. Just help us get the word out. Because they're all related. We're getting rid of some exemptions. We can't have where you have an imbalance in the tax digest where you're just doing certain exemptions and leaving some in place, and then you'll have people that are double dipping on some of those exemptions possibly.
My name's Nancy York and I live in Oconee County. And my question, well, a couple things. One is, I guess there's some reason why you have to have 10 separate ballot issues rather than combining them into one,
Yes.
or two or three. So, and I didn't hear an explanation, but I guess you have a reason. The other question is, when does if you're over 75, when does that $10,000 come off your valuation? Is it 2020, 2035 or 2025?
75 and older exemption will go into effect on January 1st of 2025.
Okay. And
When a
why is,
resident is 75, you get that additional $10,000 on the 2025 tax.
okay,
And
And
what we're
why-
doing is we're repealing old law, and then we're just reinstalling it, and you have to do it on both sides of the street. You have to do the Board of Education side,
oh,
and that's why there's so many ballot questions. That's some part of it has to do with how the original ones were put in place, and the others are putting the new ones in place. We tried everything we could, but, the way the Constitution is written and the way the laws were written, it has to be done.
okay. And one, why is there a 10-year lag to 2035 to bump up to 10,000?
Because some of the sunset, on that sunset exemption, some of those are pretty significant, tax breaks. So we're trying to allow time for that to process through, just for stability and being able, helps us maintain the millage rate when there's not a big change in the exemption rate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Barsanti, Oliver Bridge Road, just a suggestion. It might be helpful to put in an example of a hypothetical person or couple who have $100,000 assessment and they're turning 65. So at this date, their assessment would be this, and at 10 years later, it would be this. And their tax hypothetically might be this and that. It just might be useful to actually see some numbers rather than just all the
That's a good idea.
a
Thank you.
verbiage. Thank you all. I really appreciate it and I hope it passes.
Thank you.
Could I make just a couple of comments? And yeah, I'm like some of y'all, when the chairman told me we were gonna have to have 10 separate ballot questions, I said, oh my God. Somebody lost their, you know what, mind in Atlanta. But that's what we're gonna have to do. So I feel your pain as far as those questions on the ballots. Two things that want to make a point to make sure I understand that this doesn't affect the city assessments.
That's correct. This is only for county board of commissioners and board of education tax.
So if you're inside the city, they will still tax you at whatever assessment before the exemption. So that's just one thing. The other thing, don't wait till these things pass. You can, if you've already turned 65, some of you may be doing that soon. If you've already turned 65, go ahead and if you haven't taken advantage of these additional homestead exemptions, go ahead and do it. You have to make an appointment with the tax commissioner to get qualified. But just on a slight chance, these 10 ballot questions don't pass, go ahead and take advantage of the freeze on your local assessment of the value once you turn 65. I didn't know about these either till I ran for the Board of Commissioners. In my conversations, I said, what's these homestead exemptions? They said, when you turn 65, I said, well, my wife's already turned 65. I'll get her to come down here and apply for these exemptions. And and you're right, Jane, it does make a difference when you freeze your assessment, especially when their property values are going up like they have the last few years. So my question to the chairman, and he'll answer it because he knows I'm going to ask, what happens when, God forbid, if the assessment starts dropping like they did in 2006, 2007? So what's the answer to that, Mr. Chairman?
So your assessment can drop if the property values drop, and then they will increase back up to the frozen level. So kind of have your cake and eat it too on that side of the board. So if values drop, your assessment will drop.
I guess I'm through now.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question because you said there's one for the BOE and then one for the BOC. Do all 10 on each have to pass, or all 10 for the Board of Education have to pass? And then all 10
all
for
10
the,
together. Yes.
all 10 together? And then I would just recommend somehow making sure everybody knows to check yes, because the last time we had all of those questions on the ballot, it was a disaster.
It
So the
was.
Board of Elections needs to maybe open a few more polls. Just a thought.
Thank you.
But let me finish. The application period is started January 1st until the end of March. So if you haven't taken advantage of these homestead exemptions they have for you folks that have turned 65, go ahead and take advantage of it. Call the tax commissioner's office and you have to set up an appointment because you have to come in and prove that you're as old as you are. But with the passage of these changes, it becomes automatic. So you don't have to come in and make applications. So when you turn 65, it will all be done for you, freeze your assessment automatically. So we're trying to make it simpler. And you're right, it's going to be a nightmare to try to get everybody to understand that you got to vote for all 10. And we have a job to make sure we get that communicated to everybody. Thank you.
Any other questions on tax exemption? All right, now's your opportunity to talk about what you want to talk about.
So Rebecca, I live in Watkinsville. I had sent y'all an email 2 weeks ago Tuesday and did not hear back, so I'd like to read it to you now and get a response if I could. Dear County Commissioners, it's been over 7 months since you were made aware of the explicit material available to children at the Oconee Library. I'd be interested to know specifically what steps you have taken regarding this issue. Contrary to the mainstream narrative, the concern is not about liking or not liking the books, but whether the content is age appropriate. These materials are still available and continue to be ordered for the children and young adult sections in the Oconee Library. The next library board meeting is Monday, January 8th at 4:30 at Wire Park, which I was there and did not see any of you. So anything at all?
So I think we've talked about this in a few of our meetings, and I met with you.
Yes, I
in
do
the group,
recall. Is there
and we talked-
anything?
So we kind of talked through what I'm doing, and what we're doing is communicating with the library board chairman and the head of the regional library system. So there is communication going on about some of the issues that exist. As far as showing up at a library board meeting, I generally don't go to those meetings in the past without having an invitation to speak about something specific going on in the library.
Do you go back and watch the videos that are recorded?
No,
Okay. Have you seen any of the books in question besides the one that was here?
I've not read the books. I'm not sure who all's read the books.
So what have you talked to the library chair and the regional library Valerie about?
Exactly what I talked to you about processes that are in place, how we can improve those processes, and they're having conversations internally about that.
Okay, has she discussed anything about having a parent advisory board?
No, I've not had specific, I've talked about what I've heard from the community that we're looking for, and they're processing all that now.
Okay, well, I've been to all the library board meetings. I've talked to Valerie as well. I've talked to our branch manager. So the process, it's very easy to order these books and very difficult to get them out. And the content is not appropriate for children, but they're classified as children and young adults. And Valerie's statement is, oh, well, we need a professional to look at these. The professionals that are looking at the books are the same ones that have ordered the books. And it does not take someone with a degree to look at a book and see if it's okay for a child. I just feel like the process is so slow and it should have been dealt with really, really quickly.
Let me ask you something. Talked about this before. What do you want us to do? Tell me what you want us to do.
Well, there is a vacant library board position that y'all appoint that has been vacant since last
All
summer.
right, let's do some hypotheticals. Let's say, for instance, we appoint somebody, and I think from the newspaper, I didn't read the newspaper. Books are challenged based on age appropriateness. Certainly, anybody in the county, if they feel like it needs to be challenged, by all means, do it. Okay, so let's say, for instance, those citizens that are part of a committee, we appoint. If they don't agree with you, what do we do?
Well,
Because let me just say, I mean, that's the issue. If there are going to be people who disagree about the books, I may see a book, I disagree with what they did. So.
so
you want
you're
to-
okay with having
No, I'm
adult
not saying
content in our
that.
library? That's the issue.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this issue, because there's going to be different people that look at that book and they're going to come to a different conclusion. I may totally disagree. I've gone through this. You probably remember, you were probably in school when the book bannings.
We're not talking about
But
back then.
it's the same type of issue though. It's the same type of issue. So I don't know what to do except from what I hear you, maybe some other people too. that we're gonna put a committee together that will all agree these books will come out.
It should be really simple to agree on what's appropriate for kids.
But it may be.
Content, the
But
content.
everybody doesn't agree. I looked at the newspaper. I may disagree with what some of those folks said. That's the part about the committee.
So when we turn in a reconsideration form on a book that is not appropriate for children, it goes to the library board. They look at it, they send it to the regional board at the Athens Regional Library System, who are the same people that look at the books, the reviews, and say, well, we ordered these books. We recommend you keeping it where it's been classified. It goes back to the library book committee and they're like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do what the professionals say. So nothing
I
ever
don't
really
think
gets.
that's not really accurate, right? Haven't they've moved books they've changed
They-
classifications on some of your
I will tell you
challenges.
What, 10 books that we've said are not appropriate, they've moved.
But I don't think they're just saying
Two.
that they're taking the time to read the book. And they're going through it and just like what Chuck's talking about.
Okay, well,
People have
here's
disagreed,
another option.
People have disagreed with your assessment that it doesn't belong a certain
Okay.
place.
Here's
And it's
another
not just
option.
one person, it's
And
a
that's
pretty
fine. Well,
unanimous,
it's-
one additional person on that board would not sway one way or another, because the votes were what?
Yeah.
almost
it's
unanimous on
disappointing that they
everything.
okay with it.
Well. I
And
mean,
y'all
that's
need to look
part
at
of
the
process.
books because they're not okay for children. And here's another option. Our Oconee library has the means, our county has the means and ability to run our own library. We don't have to be under the regional system, which is part of the Georgia Library Association, which is under the American Library Association that pushes this kind of things in libraries. And that's a decision our library board could make, and it should be discussed.
Is that what you'd like to see?
I would.
The move away from the regional and we create.
Yes, I would.
Now, I'm just asking her a question. I'm not asking for clapping and all, but I'm just asking you, I'm trying to get to what you're.
Yes, that would be
goal
great.
is.
Our county can run our own libraries.
I don't know why you think that'd be any different, though. Than the board's currently,
Well, it
Serving.
should be.
if you had a board of just citizens in our own library system, you still have the same issues.
So we shouldn't do anything about it then.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I mean, you have a tendency to put words in our mouths. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying there's a process in place that we are concerned about, and we've voiced our opinions, and they're working through some of those issues as a board. But you're throwing it at us like we got to do something immediately about it. And
Okay,
I'm-
well, why isn't
That we're
it,
not doing stuff.
well, why isn't the open position that y'all appoint has not been filled yet? Y'all just advertised for a bunch of advisory board positions and the library board was not on there.
Because my plan is to replace that with the next openings that come up. We'll advertise for all positions on the library board at that time.
Why couldn't you fill it last summer when it became vacant? The city of Walkinsville refilled their position in like 2 weeks.
You're okay with that process they used?
They didn't,
You're,
there was no process.
all right. So we
But
have,
y'all don't have a process now. You didn't even,
I've got a process.
it.
I've explained it to you face to face and again tonight what my process is. So I do have a
which is
process.
to wait and fill it at a different time.
Exactly. So you
sorry,
you
you
disagree
started
with the
the process.
decisions of the library board, you disagree with the Athens Regional Library, you disagree with the National Library, and you
Because
disagree
everything-
with how we operate as a board of commissioners.
Okay,
So-
well, everything seems like it's in limbo and you're,
It's not in limbo. Change in government is slow and incremental,
okay.
okay?
well,
So, and as much as I'd love to see things move fast, it does not work like that because of all the, you bring 50 people in, 25 think this and 25 think that. So we're going at it at in my opinion, a logical, acceptable pace to try to address some of the issues that exist.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Again? Let's say, for instance, we appoint somebody and they disagree with you.
Okay.
I mean, could happen.
It just really, it surprises me that the entire library board wanted to keep those books in the children's section.
So you're not
And
really
I-
okay with being disagreed with, as you, right?
Well, no, there was no discussion about it. They just said, oh, well, this is what the library board, reconsideration recommends. Any discussion? There's nothing.
I'll just tell you from my experience in being on a board there's a lot of time that goes into preparing for meetings, whether you get up there and say a whole lot or not.
When you talked with Valerie or the branch manager, did y'all discuss any specific books or just the process?
I'm not discussing specific books. I'm interested in the process.
Okay, so y'all have not seen any books except what's been printed in the paper and the one that was here.
I've not gone and read the books, no.
Okay,
I'm not,
well,
I've
I would
not-
like to, I know I've met with you one-on-one, but if there's a time I could meet with everybody and show you specific books. Because
have you
these are,
challenged those books?
Hmm?
Have you challenged those books?
We can only challenge like 5 per quarter.
You got everybody's email. I would encourage you to send out.
Yeah,
see what they
and
said.
I got no response, which is why I had to,
Well, you're asking questions that we've already addressed. And I want to have a meeting. I don't know anybody up here that won't meet with you. Just like I did.
We're not gonna go take over the library. I think that's what we do. I mean, I understand what you. want.
it's not,
You're wanting, best I can tell, whatever is being challenged, they gotta agree with you. Pretty much.
no,
And
it's
that's
for,
not always gonna happen.
it's having the branch manager and the staff, whoever it is, ordering age-appropriate content for children in the library. That should be really simple.
In this county, they just don't.
And
I mean,
that's
see
fine.
most
If I bring a children's book that has nude people having sex, some people may be like, yeah, that's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay for kids. If,
Wait a minute, I'm talking, look, if you want to
If-
come
if
up, you're
you-
welcome to come up.
if you have a children's book that has self-harm and violence in it, some people might be okay with that, some not. It's not appropriate for kids.
Wait, agree with you about that particular book, but if you go through the process, if it were me, I would go back again and bring it up again to challenge it.
And once again, it's very easy for them to order, 20, 30, 40, however many books they order that may have this kind of content. And then it's very difficult to say, okay, well, here's one book I challenge. It's going to take forever to get these books reclassified to the correct adult content matter.
You give me the list.
If they're not appropriate
take
for
'em out.
children, they need to be
asking.
reclassified or not ordered in the first place. Right, which is
County
where,
Commission goes into the library and takes out the books that you give us. Is that what
no,
you're saying?
no. I think a parent advisory board, before books are even ordered, to look at and say, do we want to have this in our library or not? The books that are currently in there, look at them, if they're appropriate or not appropriate, or if they need to be reclassified to adult.
I go back and ask you the same question. If that parent advisory board that you want us to put together disagrees with you, are you going to accept it?
They can work under the library
Why would you
board.
stand up there now and fight for your cause if you're going to accept it, if a parent committee accepts stuff that you don't want in the library? I mean, is the board not put together to do that already to protect kids? I mean, I know they're there
Well, they
for a
should
reason.
be.
I
They should
understand.
be.
But if you put a parent committee together and they disagree with you, will you accept it? And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying you're saying, you said yes, but yet you're fighting in the case that it's wrong 100%. So unless we put a parent committee together that's going to agree with your opinion, is that what?
Well, Well, they don't already agree on the library board.
And so I encourage you,
So-
to
so
fight
it's-
the
and
library
it-
board at your fullest earnest if you can. I encourage you to do that. But what Chuck said was, we can't go in and do that right now. There is a board in place that is doing the job. There are people that are there across the state that are part of the library system that are doing those things you're wanting another group to do. So I agree with Chuck. I'm not sure what you want us to do. Because once again, we don't disagree with you on some things probably, but we are not in control of that particular area.
Okay, well, I just feel like process is creeping and these books keep getting ordered and it's not okay for kids.
I encourage you to keep fighting the battle. I encourage you to do that because if you truly believe it, then you should be there at every meeting fighting that battle for sure.
We are,
Absolutely.
and I do think separating from the Georgia Library Association would help. I think it would. And I think that would be one of my goals and assessing what's there already. It just, every one to 5 reconsiderations that are accepted, whether they're moved or not, they order a dozen more that are just like it. So it's
Look, I think.
I don't know.
I thank you for getting up and fighting the battle. I really do. Thank you for doing it because I mean, we got a battle for our kids. But right now, we're not, and we'll keep doing what we can do to make sure the process is in place properly. But right now, you're asking us to do something we cannot do.
Okay, well, with the vacant position, could you go ahead and open that? And I know you've gotten applicants for it, even though it wasn't advertised.
Right, we're not gonna have a process where it's not advertised as an open position. It will be advertised and we'll take applications just like we do with all our citizen committees. We're gonna maintain our procedures that we have for replacing the members of a committee.
Can I ask you one more?
Sure.
Have you talked to chairman of the library board, any of the members?
I've talked to the branch manager. I've emailed a lot of the emails that I've sent y'all. I've also sent the library board and gotten no response. And the library friends, I've gotten no response. So, I mean, last summer, I may have heard back from Mr. Daniel saying you got it, but nothing.
Yeah, and face-to-face meeting.
Yeah.
Let me set up with you, come in, brought a whole group of folks with you. And we met right up there in the foyer. So it's been
But
more
did-
than just.
Did you have a
you're-
chance to look through that information?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
I think what I would. Said to him before. Said to him.
I think I will.
And I,
Thank you.
I will say that I have called the chairman and talked with him. And I don't disagree with you that some of those books are inappropriate for certain kids. And, you know, if it were my kids, you know, some of these books, I wouldn't want them looking at it either, you know, at certain ages. I don't disagree with you at all there. Unfortunately, this board doesn't control those books. And the books are being controlled by the library itself. And I understand what you're saying, pull out of the regional system, but are there examples of us or anybody pulling out of those regional systems where the books are taken out immediately? And the books that are in the library now, would all of those have to go to the regional system and we basically start over? And then the other thing is, would we get any state funding for the library? Just like we just had this rebuild of the library, you know, the state funded most of that. And then we funded some as well. So
There are examples of other libraries that have separated from the ALA, and I guess the GLA in Georgia, I can find some. Yes, there are examples of libraries that have cleaned house or reclassified materials. The last I checked in the Oconee budget, y'all had about $500,000 for the library. And operating cost, I'd have to go back and look specifics, but I think Oconee could maintain our own system. So I can look up some more information for you. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Julie Mock. Chuck, to answer to your point about how would you decide what's taken out or not, and nobody's asking it to be taken out of the library, it's out of the children's section and put in the adult section, which would be more appropriate. But the Supreme Court years ago created something called the Miller test, which is a three-prong obscenity test. The only reason this stuff is allowed in the libraries here is because there's an exclusion in the Georgia Code that excludes libraries from providing obscene content to minors. So they're providing things to minors under the shield of this Georgia Code exclusion that you would be cited for and that I would be cited for if I gave that same content to somebody. And this is all part of a bigger picture of the ALA, and you know, they're trying to put this stuff in the libraries through their rainbow list, and you all have been provided that information as well. You know, the president of the American Libraries Association wrote something called Queering the Catalog, and unfortunately, with LGBTQ content comes sexually explicit content. This isn't about LGBTQ per se, it's about any, you know, heterosexual, any kind of sexually explicit content, but it's all being put in there under the protection of that Georgia Code. So the three-prong Miller test is something that's used every day. And, you know, that could be used in deciding what goes in front of our children's, you know, children as well. So it's not that complicated. It's done every day. And you've got parents, I mean, you've got parents who are willing to get involved. I mean, you know, get them involved. You know, these are your taxpayers, your constituents, your voters. They want to help you. Let them help you.
Julie. It's Mark Thomas again. Have you talked with any of the legislators about trying to get some of the laws changed in Georgia?
Yes.
And what do they say?
We're working on it. There is a Senate Bill 154 that Greg Dolezal is going to be putting out. Actually, he put it out last year and it didn't move. But this year, they're trying to put it out again. There are two other bills that some are working on, that we're working on to try and take care of all of this. So hopefully it's going to be coming down the pipe. But, you know, take this opportunity to do what's right, to do the right thing. And I mean, at least look at some of these books. We're not talking about Deanie by Judy Blume. We're talking about filth. And you know that because you've seen some of them. And again, it's not about taking it out of the library. I believe in intellectual freedom. Everybody else believes in intellectual freedom, but it is about what's appropriate for children. And, you know, get parent permission to check them out. That's all. That's all. It would be very simple. You don't have to create a parent advisory board and do all these things. Use the three-prong Miller test, you know, and, you know, we do it for movies. We do it for magazines. We do it, you know, for everything. We're just asking the library to participate in that, to respect parents enough to participate in that. That's all.
So the other libraries that are outside of the regional system, do they use the three-prong Miller test?
No, I mean, there are 47 states that have that exclusion for libraries, but, you know, that exclusion was basically for books for, you know, anatomy books or, you know, books that, you know, were questionable. You didn't want to hold libraries responsible for that. But there is an agenda that is being pushed, and it's very well documented. That's no secret that they're loading up our children's section in the libraries with these books. They're not doing it under disguise, you know, and you've all been sent that information. So yeah, I mean, but there are 47 other states that have that same exclusion, but there's a lot of legislation going on in the other states as well that's trying to remove the exclusion.
Can you give us an example of any of the states that have excluded that and any track record that they have experienced with this.
I can look into that. I mean, it's all fairly new. I mean, most of it started kind of last year, you know, with the new ALA president. Nobody ever thought this would be something that our libraries, our trusted libraries would be doing. But I'm happy to try and get some of that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Victoria Cruz, Oconee County, of course. As much as I would like to weigh in on the library thing, you know, that's not my thing. My thing is elections. I wanted to let you know, and in case you missed it, that's whatever, in case you missed it. ICYM. I saw that and I didn't know what it was. ICYM is it, in case you missed it. Governor Kemp and his wife are in Davos, Switzerland, attending the World Economic Forum. Okay, and just let that digest. If you don't know what the World Economic Forum is, I suggest you look into it. I'm not going to weigh in on it here. It's a big, deep state topic. I have been told it's because he wants to further Georgia's global appeal or appeal to globalists to do business in Georgia. He's basically selling Georgia. I remember when Governor Perdue went to China, my daughter went with the band to go, or the symphony to go perform in China. And I remember way back then in 2007 thinking, what a wonderful thing. But I am not so sure that our governor going to Davos is a good thing. So I just thought I'd let you know that in case you missed it. The governor, before he left, also appointed a new chairman of the state election board because the previous one he appointed abruptly resigned in the summer when, in my opinion, things were getting a little too hot for him. He was Judge William Duffy, who was enjoying his retirement, and then he was plucked and put in this firestorm that is the state election board in Georgia, which is still listening to cases from 2014. This is how slow those wheels move. When the Secretary of State's office is involved in investigations, which is the way it's set up right now, they do not want to investigate themselves. So they're still looking at cases from 2014. They have been slow walking cases from 2020, including some very, very serious ones, which are gaining national attention right now. And I just wanted to let you know that that's coming up. But the governor has appointed a new chair. He is Mr. John Furvier, who is a 35-year employee of the Waffle House Corporation. He is in charge, and he's the vice president, in fact, of risk management and security. So he deals a lot in workman's compensation and, you know, the managements of risks on the job and all that. He was a veteran of the U.S. Army, and he went to Berry College. So I'm hopeful that Mr. Furvier will be able to add something as new chair of the state election board. And to help him out, there is now new legislation being proposed in the legislature to give the state election board the authority to hire its own investigators so that it can investigate the Secretary of State. Because as I said, up until this point, the Secretaries of State's investigators are not willing to investigate themselves. We have the fox in charge of the hen house. And that is why everybody can stand around and say that, you know, echo what the Secretary of State says, which that is that these were the most perfect elections in history in 2020. And I'm hoping that with this new legislation and a new chair of the state election board, you will all realize that that is not the case. There is legislation about the library exemption. Senator Greg Dolezal is bringing it up again because it was introduced last time. It's merely simply removing that exemption for libraries. You cannot show pornography to children. It's illegal to show pornography to children. but you can put it in the library. That is a loophole that needs to be closed. It is. And if the state legislature can do it, that will leave you men off the hook, maybe, or at least give you some cover when you go to enforce what is best for the children. Two other things, there is legislation again being put there for ranked choice voting to be used in municipal elections. And I would like to warn you that ranked choice voting is not something we want in municipal elections because it is a complicated procedure. It takes away the standard of one person, one vote. It forces voters to vote for multiple candidates for an office on a slate. And then in order to, and they rank them. The ballot is very complicated. Old people and minorities have a hard time with it. And that's why it's not gained traction across the country, although they are trying. But it also, in order to be tabulated, has to run through a special algorithm in a machine. And that algorithm can be put in wrong. Mistakes happen, but most importantly, it's not available for audit. You can't audit what happened in that machine. It just does it automatically. It just churns them out automatically. And if people don't vote for all the candidates they're suppose there were 5 people vying for your position, Mr. Daniel. 5 candidates signed up saying, hey, I got a shot at this with this ranked choice voting. I think I will put my name in there. Well, if their supporters do something to orchestrate this, like game it, or if your voters decide this is too complicated, I only want to vote for John Daniel, then through that complicated process of tabulation, even though you may have a majority in the first round, if it's not over 50%, and nobody else vote, and the people who didn't vote for someone else, didn't rank you second or rank somebody second, their vote is eventually thrown out. Ranked choice voting says that what it does is get to a majority. They want to assure that anybody who wins an office wins by a majority, 50% plus 1. Well, that 50% plus 1 may have a denominator of half of the votes that were cast because the other half were thrown out. So that is a false majority. So if you're confused by it, I don't blame you. And that's not the only alternate election method that has been thought up by people who have nothing better to do in life than think up this stuff. So there are a lot of people against it. In fact, there's legislation being proposed to ban it. Just ban it. And we hope that wins over the legislation for it. But that's what's going to be in there. And then there's just one other. Oh, yeah. There is a federal court case, Curling v. Raffensperger. Not sure you've heard of it. It started back in 2017 as Curling v. Kemp when he was Secretary of State, and it was against the DREs, the paperless DREs that never gave you a paper receipt. You couldn't tell what you voted for. You just had to remember what you clicked on the screen. Well, they got rid of those, but then they introduced the Dominion system. The Dominion system gives you a paper ballot that supposedly has your choices on it that you can read. And so that satisfied that part of the law. Unfortunately, when you go to tabulate your vote, it's tabulated in the QR code. And they've already shown, Professor Haldeman from, I believe it's Michigan, has already shown by having one of our machines, one of our very own Georgia machines, that it can be hacked in so many ways. There is no security in there. They can change the votes. The QR codes can be different from what's written. A lot of things can happen. There's that people have access. You don't have to be really technically proficient, which I am not. But, so anyway, the case. It is now going to trial. One thing you might want to know, it certainly makes me think, it raises the hair on the back of my neck. Secretary of Raffensperger refused to testify before the federal judge. It's a federal case, before the federal judge under oath. Now, why would he do that? Why would he do that? He had no problem testifying under oath at the JSIC committee. But that's going on tonight, now. It started last week. It should go for another couple weeks. And I'm really anxious to see what will happen. I think the best that we can hope for is that the ballot marking devices will be judged illegal. But the federal judge has already said, because states are allowed to do all the elections, that she can't get rid of them. It's going to be up to the legislature to do that. And I hope that, I mean, that can't happen soon enough. All right, so just FYI, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Thalen, and I'm here to talk about roads, but first I just had a thought that wanted to pass on regarding the libraries. Instead of fighting the public library system, which hasn't gotten very far, I'm wondering if you'd have better success if you talk to the private schools in the area to try to form a private coalition and create a private library, because then you'd be pulling together more like-minded people potentially. The schools already have libraries, so they have to order books and review books. Anyway, just a thought I had as I was sitting there. But now I'm going to talk about road projects on 316. Not my first time speaking to this group about that. A lot of people may be aware about the interchange that's planned for Oconee Connector at 316 and Jimmy Daniel. They might not be aware that there's another interchange that's planned to be built around the same time as those two interchanges. And that's for Dials Mill intersection out on the west end of town. And I'm sure we're all happy to have less congestion and fewer accidents, but some of the details of the projects can be a problem. As president of our HOA, I've been working for almost 3 years now, trying to get more information from DOT about the Dials Mill interchange. They held public open house sessions for the Oconee Connector and Jimmy Daniel interchanges, but they have not held one yet for Dials Mill, even though we've been asking one for close to 3 years now. I know in 2020, Oconee County officials met with DOT and suggested that the trees between Dials Mill Road and Dials Mill Extension be cleared and that the interchange be constructed there instead of taking land from people's yards or taking people's homes. But DOT didn't go along with that idea. There's a housing shortage in Georgia that isn't expected to go away anytime soon. So when they're building new roads, the last thing we need is for people's homes to be taken from them or land to be taken from people's backyards. Where are those people supposed to move to if there's already a housing shortage? DOT seems to care more about commercial land or even agricultural land that has commercial potential than on preserving residential land. Georgia has been #1 for business for 10 years in a row, and that's great. But what about people? What about the citizens? Don't we matter too? There are a lot of changes happening along State Road 316, and people want to know what's going on. We created a new website, Oconee316.org, and it covers changes along State Road 316 near Bogart, like the interchanges and also the new Driver Services Center and State Police Post. The response rate to the website has been phenomenal, and it shows that there's a lot of interest in what's going on. We've been encouraging people to write to our elected officials to ask DOT to hold a public session about the interchange, like they've done for the others, and to learn about the plans for McNutt Creek Road that leads into Bogart. The state legislature is in session right now, and they'll be proposing and voting on new laws. This is an opportunity to reach out to all of our state representatives and ask them to pass laws that protect Georgia homeowners. Being number one for business shouldn't come at the expense of Georgia residents. So I wanted to ask all of y'all if you have any suggestions of other things that can be done to help state leaders keep communities like ours and their citizens in mind when they're making these kinds of decisions.
I'll just say as far as Dials Mill and Dials Mill Extension, have you been on the 316, Transforming 316 website? Have you seen the latest concepts that are out there?
I go to that website regularly. So, and I know there was the concept report approved a couple of years ago that placed it at Dials Mill Road. There was a more recent one last year that put it at Dials Mill Extension, but all of the project information still has it at Dials Mill Road. None of the budget information has been updated since 2020.
I will say, in my dealings with DOT, they've been very receptive to the comments that y'all have made to us and that we've passed on to them. If you look at the current concept plan compared to the original one, significantly different. With the interchange being at McNutt Street, Dials Mill Extension now versus next to your house. So right now it's showing that Dials Mill Road with cul-de-sac, it's your subdivision. And so that's a big change from what it was originally. As far as McNutt's Creek, that's still in early concept plans. They had one to start with, and then when Department of Driver Services and State Patrol decided to go out, they went back to the drawing board trying to figure out access. And I was in one of those meetings, and I thought we had a consensus about a full interchange at McNutt Creek. They've actually gone and looked at how much land that will take, who will be displaced. So all that's back up in the air still. So there's no final approved concept plan for McNutt Creek yet. Hopefully, maybe mid-year that will come back out. I do know DOT will likely have another open house or information, what did y'all call it, PIOH or something? Yeah. So I do know the first one, the one that occurred last year, that was kind of an open house where that was kind of.
That was a town hall and they
Yeah, that was-
specifically
yeah.
would not answer any
Exactly.
questions about the.
That was kind of a waste of
projects.
time for everybody, and that's been
Right.
communicated. So I think it'll be similar to the ones that were done earlier, once they get, that was more of information just spread about the whole 316 corridor. So there'll be more specific ones coming up. But they just haven't reached a decision on McNutt Creek, how Mars Hill is going to be impacted there.
Well, the thing that concerns me is that, because I work on large projects and project management. The project information still says the interchange is at Dials Mill Road. The only place where it says it's at Dials Mill Extension is in a PDF document on a website. But if you're working for DOT and you're pulling up projects by project number, I mean, it's a database with all sorts of information. Project is still listed as an interchange at Dials Mill Road, and that's the information that comes up, the budget's that information. So again, the only place that talks about Dials Mill Extension is in that PDF. And again, talking about displacements, that diagram includes 2 roundabouts, which increase the number of displacements and still leaves all the undeveloped land in the middle untouched. It's like, couldn't they move the interchange a little bit to the east and not have to displace those homeowners and still be able to put in a roundabout? You know, those are the kinds of
I don't
questions.
recall any displacement. How many folks are going to be displaced? I don't recall. Is it showing displacement of homes on that?
If you look on the south side of 316 where the roundabout is,
Showing a
when I
displacement.
look at it, it's going to take out a couple.
But it has it
homes.
marked as a displacement?
Yes, I think that the red dot is displacement. So, and again, the project information still shows the same number of displacements as originally. And would there be even fewer displacements if it were in the wooded area in between? You know, those are the kinds of questions that we would want to be
I don't
able
know.
to pass.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the different versions as far as this placement. I do know they've been very receptive to our comments. They've made changes. I don't understand their website. It's not the friendliest in the world as far as when you go into they call it GeoPie or something. But I do know the concept that they're showing as preferred now on the website. I think I forwarded to somebody in your group to look at. It's significantly different. So they are listening to everybody's comments that are coming.
Okay, so then if you can pass on, because again, that's the PDF document. If you could pass on a request to ask them to update the information that's in their database for that project, so that again, the website hasn't, the budget and other information hasn't changed since 2020. The project and the information in the database hasn't changed. So if they could do that, that would help address some of the concerns.
Nancy York again from Oconee County. At one time, there was talk of abating, or however you say it, if you're 75 and older, school taxes for people 75 and older. There was talk of that at one time, about 65 and older, actually. But is there any more talk of that, or does this new stuff replace that?
So any further exemptions for school taxes will have to be discussed with the school board.
With the school board? Okay. I know there was talk about it. I hope that goes through.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay, many of you guys already know me and several of you out in the audience. I do definitely know my son Peyton. And if he could be here tonight, he would. He's 16 years old and anyway, he owns his own newspaper in this area. Just for anyone, point of interest, had a really nice article written last week in the Enterprise. And he's much more articulate. I get really nervous in front of the microphone, but I do have a few things to say, and you probably already know what I'm going to say. But they're not negative, but I just need some questions answered. So one of the main things is I did want to talk about roads as well, and specifically relating to mine. My name is Kirsten McGee. I live on Loch Lomond Circle. And so enough said, we live right on Experiment Station, the lovely road widening project. My first question is, what is the timeline? Because I know it was last August and I don't even know what it is anymore. Can you update us?
Probably, I can tell everybody it's going to be 18 more months.
And just add it, I was going to say, and then I'll
Every
add
month-
another
every
6
month,
months.
18
Okay.
months.
Okay.
There's the supply chain really got us messed up at the beginning.
Okay.
Getting pipe, to replace water lines was a big deal. We got
Right.
pushed back probably 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
We had it on order, kept getting the order pushed. Also with telecoms relocating utilities, it was very slow process there.
Okay. And Justin, I wish he was here tonight too, because we know him as well. And he had told me that, but then he was like, well, I'm going to say December. And I'm thinking, no way. I watch it out my window every single day. But another really important thing is, and I'll be honest, I'm much more concerned about safety at this point for what my child is doing on the road than what he's reading in the library. I'm just going to say that. But as a recent driver, he in fact said to me yesterday, it feels unacceptable. And I decided that's going to be sort of my word for all the things that I want to break down quickly. It's unacceptable that my two neighbors, and it's a very small neighborhood, that two of them are in handicap accessible vans, cannot get out of our neighborhood without it scraping and scratching and practically ruining. They're extremely expensive and very necessary. It's just, that's their vehicle. They need to be able to get out of the neighborhood. One of my neighbors who's over 70 years old, if you drive down there, today, any day, for example, and I know they can't keep up with this 100%, but it is a disaster area, you guys. The road is not flush with where the ground meets. And it's Peyton said to me, I'm going to pop a tire. He just spent a lot of money, his own money from his business to purchase a car. And that would just break my heart, but it's not safe. And so when I've asked them on occasion to try to smooth it out. They might do it. It rains. I understand that they can't do it every single day, but it's gotten to the point where you can't, you know how busy that road is. You can't leave quickly. You have to, inch out, and then people are barreling down the road. Again, I'm not okay with my 16-year-old like trying to navigate that. He told me, he said I had to turn right to go to school the other day, and school is left because he didn't feel good about it. And, you know, so that's one thing. My 70-whatever-year-old neighbor got out there one day with his own shovel and tried to flatten it out. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Multiple times, they will park their vehicles that are giant right up against the road. We can't see. I can't even see to make a right turn. And then sometimes they're out there, you know, telling me to come. I don't need you to direct traffic. I need you to back your vehicles up. It's unacceptable. They'll close the entrances with absolutely no warning. Again, it may be for a short period of time, but if nothing else, what they did at the beginning was at least give us a warning, those of us that live on that street, by pulling the barriers back so that we don't show up to that part of the road and then we can't get out. It's less of an issue for us, but it's a really big issue for school buses. The school bus, it's unacceptable. We have 3 little tiny streets in our neighborhood. If we didn't have the pool parking lot, I don't know where the bus would turn around. It literally would not be able to turn around. Does this all make sense? I hope. What else? Who is our point person? You know, I know you guys have tried, and I appreciate you. You do answer my emails. You do. You answer Peyton's emails. I appreciate that. But we don't know who we're supposed to be talking to about this. Is there a point person? Woodall, is that a person that I'm supposed to, that's the only name that I know. Who do we talk
Jody's our
to?
county engineer, and there's a project manager for the project. I'll try to
Okay.
get that information.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be great. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. And anything you can do to help us feel really safe while we're waiting 2 more years.
18 months. almost 2 months.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi, Amanda McCoy. I live in Farmington. Before I get started on Heritage Park, I just want to say I have a 5-year-old. And when the library is open, we were in there 2-3 times a week, every week. We go there a lot. And I just appreciate you guys not letting a couple of religious like crazies and one Facebook tyrant decide what content my child sees. I monitor every YouTube video she sees. I monitor every book. And, you know, we live on a farm, so maybe I'm a little bit more liberal with what content she sees, but anyways, I just want to say thank you guys for not trying to change any processes, because okay, so Heritage Park update. Can we, I hear there's news, and can you just kind of confirm some of those details for me, or maybe tell me where we are with that?
Yeah, so as everybody knows, we have the park master plan has been updated. That includes Heritage Park. So Amanda was very instrumental in getting that site plan done. It has done a lot of work on it. It's been accepted by the Board of Commissioners. We hope to start engineering on that plan the first quarter of this year. Once we get through the engineering, we'll be able to get a little more firm pricing and also how to stage it in. So rough estimates on the project was $6 million, just looking at the concept plan, which is a big number. So we know we're not going to have $6 million to start with, so we want it laid out in a incremental. So maybe we can do phase 1, 2, 3, and that kind of thing. So that's what we're working on. So that's big news. Hopefully we'll start that engineering first quarter of this year. Also, as far as Dawson Park goes, we expect to release an RFP to start engineering on Dawson Park first quarter of this year. And hopefully by mid-year, we should be able to have the engineer on board and start that process as well. Again, that's going to be a phased approach to do that. Oconee Veterans Park will be receiving additional tennis courts. We're in the process of finding a designer for those to make sure that's put in the correct way. That will start sometime this year, and hopefully in 2025, that construction will get underway. And that will free up Herman C. Michael Park to be turned into outdoor pickleball courts from their tennis courts. And that will occur after we get the tennis courts done at Herman C, at OBP. We'll be increasing our capacity for youth sports, our capacity for equestrian and livestock activities. So, pretty good news.
I'm very excited to hear that news. What is included in phase one? Have you made any of those decisions yet
For Heritage
for
Park,
Heritage Park?
no.
Okay.
We'll have to get the engineering because we don't want to do one thing and then come back for phase two and tear something up. So it's going to have to be,
Yeah, I did construction
Big picture
project
look
manage.
is-
I know,
okay, so
I
you-
understand. Yeah.
we got to figure out what's got to be done, number one, and then when we depart, it's going to be pretty detailed.
Yes,
Yes.
I appreciate that attention to detail. It's very important and I value it. So we are obviously very excited to be able to use the park. Are we looking at 18 months or like, what is what, can we help? I want to start having stuff out there. So,
So my guess would be it's probably 12 months of engineering
okay,
before we even get to the point where we can get some firm numbers on what each phase will cost and all that. So it's not going to be overnight.
right.
And even if it takes 12 months to do it, then by the time we find the money and get going, you're talking
Okay.
2 to 3 years before you get a full phase done, I believe.
Okay, that answers a lot of my questions. So I guess the only, we'll have to, are we gonna have to wait for engineering to be done? Like, do I need to wait and come back in 12 months to ask when, like, phase one is gonna start? Or should I send you some emails?
We shall phase in plan. So, yeah, you're welcome to keep coming, but
Okay,
until we get the engineers contract finalized and get them on that.
right.
And then, so,
Is the bidding process, so I've learned so much about government in the last few years. So there's a engineering phase and then there's a bidding process, right? Is the bidding process part of that or like,
once we get to 50%, we'll make a decision on whether, since it's going to be a phased approach, going with our typical method of having a construction manager at risk is
okay,
not feasible because we can't guarantee we're going to go ahead with construction.
right,
So we get the 50% mark, we'll take a look and kind of see if we can
Okay.
get better numbers.
okay. Well, I'm sure I'll see you before 6 months, but I'll definitely see you in 6 months.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I was gonna make,
Sure.
just so you got folks that want a swimming pool, major swimming pool. We got folks that need more soccer facilities. We got folks that need more basketball facilities. I'd throw in volleyball too. So I just want you to know there's a bunch of them out there wanting, and we're trying to get much, but there's another issue. It all has to do with money. You can we can do all the engineering stuff, but we still got, there's a financial issue too. But because the county is growing and a lot of young folks in the Parks and Rec, we want to, try to help. It's trying to get ahead of that, almost impossible. I just want you to know, we're concerned what you want. There's also another group also asking us to help out the cause.
Yes, sir. I understand. I actually served on the RAC board this last term, so I have listened to all the pickleball people. I got to hear it. I would, so yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I've been studying this for a long time. I'm a lifelong equestrian, and I believe that the return on the investment to the community is what justifies this project specifically. So Thank you.
Now, when you came with the plan, we're moving pretty fast, right?
it's so fast.
Okay.
Every time you guys are just blinding me with your speed.
There you go. Thank you.
Dan McGee, Lock Lomond Circle. We'll talk about parks. I'll be brief. But quick thing with library system, being regional is important. When my son has a research project for school, they don't have that book, the local library, and get it from another library in the state. So he's had to do a couple times, get a specific book for a term paper or whatever. They don't have it here in Oconee or Athens, and get it from Helen, Dalton, or whatever. I got a book last night, wasn't available locally. They got it from Carrollton. Had it within a couple of days. I'm reading. Parks and Rec, appreciate everything. And I've talked to you before, long time about parks, but it was 2018, first discussed at a town hall I was at about the Middle Oconee River Park, the Athens Academy, about that acreage being passive, not sports. And then in 2019, we talked at town halls, talked about rails and trails and the Dawson, Wendell and Betty Dawson Park. I know there's a lot going on. I'm a parks director, supply chain. The only thing I ask for Parks and Rec is have just some target dates. So I don't come here to ask you, hey, what's up with LS Park? But if you have something on the website saying we target engineering in 2025, we target this, and as Chuck said, money's got to be there or whatever. But if we have that, then we kind of know. I was hoping that Dawson Park we'd be ready before my kid graduates high school. Not going to happen, but that's fine. I want it to be ready before he has kids. I'm a grandfather. So I think that's fair. And that after COVID, everyone knows supply chain funding is going to delay, but it's up there. The LA's Park, Dawson Park, the passive park. And I was in the Parks Board for 8 years. People ask me all the time, hey, what's going on? So when they see that, we had a pretty picture for the Dawson Park. You presented it a couple of years ago. And people, when you show people a picture, they're like, oh, that's gonna be ready quick, man. You're ready to go. You got an engineer or whatever. So if any park project, if we have timelines, it's really, really important. Have it online. And if it changes, you update the website. But county's growing, young people moving in. If we kind of know it's gonna be ready 2 years, 5, 10, then you're not gonna have people like me asking about it. Thanks.
Thank you.
We've got, we got to get through with Falls Creek sewer plant. Sewer plant falls, then we can, as quick as possible. This gentleman right here is probably tired of me talking about some of the things that I'd like to see, but we got to get that done first. So then we can decommission the LAS site and turn it into Dawson.
So March 2019 is what Commissioner Daniel told us. He said we're at to decommission it. He said 2, maybe 3 years. So and I know COVID hit or whatever, but that was 5 years ago in March. He said 2 to 3 years. We understand COVID changed everything, supply chain, but if we update it, but that was me almost 5 years ago, we said 2 to 3 years to decommission. Now we're going on 5, which is fine. Just let's update it and then people know. It takes long to decommission. You understand that? I know all that working for a county government, but the timeline changes. If we just update it, then I think everyone's support. No one votes against parks. Nobody. The pickleball people are going to yell at you. I understand. But just if we get updated, then I think it's proactive.
Oh, I can't just. Jean Bar Sandy, this time for the Oconee Parks Foundation, because we like to talk about money in parks. We would like to get more private money into parks, and we've had some success lately with Heritage and we have a new project. In addition to Heritage, we're going to try to get a new playground at Bogart. That playground equipment is really deteriorating and it needs a new playground, and it's going to take a long time, like Chuck says, to have enough public money. So we're going to have a 5K fun run on March 17th just to kick off that project, fundraising for that project. Now that won't raise enough funds to get new playground equipment, which costs $150,000 to $250,000 for playground equipment. Amazing to me. I never knew that. So, but anyway, we're getting it on people's radar with our first event for the foundation. So positive news for children. This would be all for goodness for children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Good evening. I'm Pam Hendricks. I live at 1151 Thornwood Drive. And I just thought I would come by here tonight. My property taxes have been going up and I've been paying more attention to the school system. And honestly, what's happened is I've realized that they are pretty transparent with finances. Every month they provide a cash balance report. They provide a vendor report. They provide a budget, a year-to-date budget report. They report on their ELOST. Both of them. They also give a federal report, which might not apply to the county. But my issue is kind of that I just am not seeing that financial transparency with the Board of Commissioners. I've been looking around the site and I found this. I think you're maybe putting out a quarterly update. Is there something I'm missing? The thing that I really would love to see is this cash balance report. I mean, part of what, I've been writing the Board of Education a little bit before, it's because they're sitting on 45 million of unbudgeted funds. I mean, that's their rainy day fund or slush fund or whatever. I know they need some, but I'm not sure they need 45 million. But I don't have any idea what the county is sitting on. So, I mean, am I missing, is there a cash balance report somewhere?
We're not producing a monthly cash balance report.
You are?
We're not, but we discuss our cash balance during the quarterly update. When our finance director comes, we talk about what the balances are. We also just completed an audit, so we've got every audit that last 5 years should be posted on the website. If you can't find one, let me know. That's a very detailed, it shows you the entire year's process of what it was at the beginning of the year, what it is at the end of the year. They do some year-to-year comparison. So that's a very detailed and very good thing for you to read to kind of get a feel for what the finance.
Yeah, I just would think that you would produce a monthly financial report. Every organization I'm in, the Garden Club, the DAR, we always have our treasurer's report, and I just have never seen it coming from this board. So.
Well, we have staff that does review the stuff every month. I get certain reports that I run through the GL system to look at every month. There's just not been a public presentation other than quarterly.
Please consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we said something. If I remember correctly, it's a fairly recent. Yes, it's last year. I can't remember what she was saying. But she talked about the fund balance and she broke it down as to what was committed, what was not committed. You can, I think it may have been somewhere 11 million.
11 million was our uncommitted at the end of the year. We have a capital fund. We have stuff set aside for some of our big projects related to the parks and that kind of thing.
And that was when she came to a meeting or?
Yeah.
Right.
She'll be back again either at the end of January or 1st of February for the second quarter reports. That'd be a good meeting to attend.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, this was a little bit hard for me to follow. I mean, this just talks about amended budget. That doesn't tell me,
If you go back and look, once you go back and look at the video, you kind of go through it then when somebody's kind of explaining.
Okay.
That's just a summary document to kind of keep everybody on pace.
Right.
So about what's being talked about.
Okay.
I mean, we can get down to detail, whatever you want to spend your time looking at, we can provide for it.
Okay.
But I would start with the audits because that's going to be your best judge of, you have an outside agency coming or group coming in, looking at the numbers and producing that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm back briefly. My name is Steve Alshar still, here in Oconee. I want to respond to the ad hominem remark about tyrants and the library. And I will be brief and not respond in turn. The concern for the library books that have been extensively discussed here this evening is in an intellectual basis in child psychiatry and developmental psychology for children. This is not something where it is against pornography or sinfulness in the Christian tradition. This has nothing to do with that. When children have to confront developmental tasks that are not appropriate for their age, and all of you probably have either children or grandchildren that will be disrupted, and the children experience on a psychological basis a trauma, which they then have to deal with subsequently. This is not about going back to the halcyon days of the library where you had the little librarian with a bun in her hair, and all they did was put nice little books about Thomas Jefferson up on the shelf. This is a conscious effort by people to subvert the developmental tasks of children. So this is much more sophisticated than has been brought up to this point in this particular meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tommy Malcolm, and I just want to thank y'all for making it a priority to hold these sessions on a regular basis. And I just wanted to ask a question, and it might not get an answer tonight, or it might be a little bit deeper, but I've just been thinking a lot recently about as our community continues to grow. I guess a kind of a topic would be game changer, but not necessarily talking about roads tonight. And we know about the wonderful schools and all the other great things about that make our community what it is. But what from y'all's perspective would be something, because I know like Rivian and Morgan and Walton County, and I believe it's Rowan, which is being developed at the Gwinnett and Barrow County. Are there types of industries or other economic development pieces out there that would be kind of Oconee's crowning jewel, I would think, just in the future? Because I know I'm familiar with kind of the commercial development that we've had in the retail, and then certainly the housing. And I've always heard it as a kid, and even now growing up, we're kind of a bedroom community of many places, and the roads that come through here, some of them are local, some of them are state and federal. So we're kind of just sitting here in everybody's spot on the way to other places. But just going back to that game changer theme, is there anything that y'all would say would just be, even from like even a national perspective, are there industries out there or companies that would be like, wow, they need a lot of acreage, and they promise to bring in a lot of jobs? Just something, what would that look like from the state to us? Are we kind of ripe or prime for that type of a major development? Wouldn't necessarily be commercial, but certainly the residential, but the jobs it might would bring. What would that look like for Oconee? Thank you.
So there's no big employers that we're out hunting for at this point in time. We did an economic development study probably 3 or 4 years ago. So there's targeted industries listed in that. You can probably find that on the website. If you can't, just let me know and I can get you a copy of it. But we're looking for things that bring value to Oconee County, and we can be kind of choosy now. A lot of the projects you're talking about, they're getting announced. That requires a significant investment from the local community. And then we get inquiries quite often from the State Department of Economic Development with stuff. And a lot of those will not fit what Oconee County is looking for. We're being very selective about what we bring in, what we don't. No, you don't know the IDA is working with a on the final western track of the Gateway Industrial Park. Hopefully something can be done with that in the next 6 months. But we have a company looking there to go there that will be significant. The eastern track that was sold, that will be starting development probably sometime this calendar year. And that's going to be office warehouse type things where they do some assembly will be done in there and some sales. That's the kind of stuff that we got coming in now. But as far as another Caterpillar or anything like that, nothing like that has fit what we're looking for or fit our what we have available. So, but the good news is the Gateway Park will be pretty much, if this sale goes through on the western track, it'll pretty much be done. You just have a few spare pieces on must be the western side of 316 that we'll have to dispose of somehow. We do have some activity going on with it. As far as growth, a lot of the retail and the commercial that you are seeing, it was planned many years ago. When you go back and look at the recent rezones, a lot of the rezones that have brought the most attention are really rezones that were done in the late 90s or early 2000s that are coming back in for a site development change density, or change the way that was originally rezoned. As far as, so a lot of that's speculative too. So even though property comes in and gets rezoned, you don't know that it's going to develop anytime soon as well. I think we're doing a good job following our comp plan. If you look at our housing starts for the last 3 years, they've been less than 200 new homes started in Oconee County all 3 years. So that's well below the number that starts causing concern for us or the school system as far as keeping up with infrastructure. So we're on a very good path. If you could look, that kind of leads me, Pam mentioned the financial part of it. We got over 43,000 people and we got a $38.8 million budget. A historically low millage rate. There's only 4 counties in the entire state that have a lower millage rate than Oconee County. And all those are up in the mountain areas. Fannin, Union, Towns, and Hart County. They have some pretty big tax base based on their recreation. Oconee County earned the Moody's AAA rating, which is the highest rating offered. There are only 112 counties in the entire United States with this rating. And we're the second smallest county by population to have that rate. We have been applying business principles to our government operations, and I think that's paying off. Strategic planning that this group started back in 2017, developed that strategic plan, and we stayed on it, checking things off at really fast rates and keep updating that. We'll probably, first of 2025, we'll go back into that again and look at what we've accomplished and what we're going to add into that. So, and then we're continuing to try to get engagement from our citizens. These town hall meetings, we're doing them quarterly, trying to get people to come out, and we try to be as transparent. We're not going to hit what everybody wants every time, for sure. But if there really is something specific you'd like to know or see, we can get it for you. So. But financially, this county is very strong. At the same time, we're getting these rates, we're dropping millage rates, and we got these projects that we're saving money for, Heritage Park and Dawson Park and the road projects. Thank you for all of y'all that voted for T-Splosh. We got some really strong projects going in there. You look at Snows Mill, at Lane Creek Road. We're in the right-of-way acquisition for that roundabout. You go look at the accident reports for that intersection. They're significant. 3 or 4 times a month, there's some pretty serious accidents there. We're working with the state DOT on 2 locations on State Route 53, which is Snows Mill at Rocky Branch and State Route 53. That's in right-of-way acquisition now. That'll get a deputy sheriff out of the roadway and also fix a lot of problems with people getting in and out of the roadway. And really significant intersection is Ray's Church at Malcolm Bridge and State Route 53. Final design of that roundabout, we hope to get released on right away by the middle of this year. Those are federally funded projects, so the county was able to partner with DOT. We're paying for engineering and purchase of right away. The state's going to fund that. You're talking probably between $3 and $4 million per roundabout is what that's going to cost for those two roundabouts. The T-Splosh funds will be funding another Union Church at New High Shoals Road is the second roundabout out of T-Splosh, and that design is complete. We're waiting on final right-of-way requirements, and we'll start acquisition on that very shortly as well. And we'll move to Assendale at Collin Ferry as number 3 on that list to get an intersection improvement. And then we have 2 additional roundabouts that will go in later on as the funds become available. So dealing with the safety issues on the roadway, all while reducing taxes and, pretty significant.
Okay, I was gonna mention, one of the issues that here in this county, because you'll hear so much about roads and we're gonna get turned into something else. We don't have a lot of sewer capacity. We just don't. We're trying to expand the Calls Creek plant to 3 million gallons a day. But some of the counties around us have millions of gallons, I would guess. Because they're able to run sewer lines and water lines everywhere. We don't have any intent to do that. I mean, we had, in our comp plan, the line stops down Highway 15 to prevent going into the southern part of the county. And if you want to see things change overnight, run water and sewer lines down there. But we just are not in that kind of a player like a Gwinnett County or Barrow, even Jackson. Clark County. They got a lot of capacity, but if you don't have the capacity, you can't turn into some of these other counties. We've not had that desire to go and follow their path. I'll be honest with you, if their path was right, why are we getting so many of them moving this way? So I just tell you, these big factories require a lot of infrastructure. Caterpillar's getting their water and sewer, I believe, or at least it started out with Clark County. We didn't have that kind of capacity to deal with that. So I think folks have to look at what the infrastructure capacity is for government, and we're just not one of those big players. And to be quite honest with you, I think it plays well. Let me say one last thing. I appreciate all the retailers we have in this county, because they bring folks in, those cash registers are running, credit card machine. And we're able to do a lot with that money. Man, I've had to be out in the X-Bridge area a lot this past year, seeing doctors and stuff. And I go walk through the county, the parking lots, and I check the car tags. We are getting all kinds of visitors go into our shopping areas. One of the things that I found, because we have been fortunate to build up medical facilities, if you go out there and look at the tags, you will see counties represented from all over coming to all those medical facilities. But what they're also doing is going and stopping at the retail. I bumped into a lady at Costco. She was a nice lady, she ran into my buggy. And I told her who I was, and she told me she lived part-time at Park County. She lived at Dollywood, she and her husband work up there. But she said, I'm seeing a doctor at 9 o'clock, or I just saw it. I got another appointment at 1:30, so we're killing time at Costco. She could have been Home Depot, whatever. Point being is, we've got our retail area right in the medical facilities. So they're able to go and wear out those cash registers and go see their favorite doctor. And you folks are benefiting. So, whether it was planned the way it is, but we are benefiting by that influx of outside dollars. So I do appreciate all the retailers we got, small, big, and we've got some of the biggest ones in the retail area, or county with just over 40,000. So I don't want to slight them, because they are putting a lot of money into our treasury.
This is Chuck Williams. I know the hour's late. I'll try to be brief. First, want to thank you publicly for hosting these town hall meetings. I really applaud you for that. Your time is valuable, and we appreciate you doing that. And also want to thank those of you that had indicated an intention to seek reelection. I think we've got, in my opinion, a high-performing Board of Commissioners in Oconee County, and that's the board as a whole, but it comes down to the individuals that constitute that board. So it can be a thankless job. So I want to thank you personally for seeking reelection as you've indicated. I guess, Commissioner, one question I've got is as it relates to county facilities, and we've touched on a lot of facilities tonight, but with the opening of this building, I guess we've got the jail and the health department building still downtown Watkinsville that are really two of the surviving buildings. And I guess the question I've got is, from a taxpayer standpoint, do you foresee any significant building projects outside of Parks and Rec and whatnot, any core building projects that you're going to have to face, that we're going to have to face as taxpayers in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, or jail, health department, and anything else I may be missing, road department or whatnot? Are we, quote, in pretty good shape now for the foreseeable future as far as bricks and mortar? Thank you.
So I believe we are. Our big project will be the courthouse. We're working on a space allocation plan now with the judicial branch. Once that's determined, we'll go into architecture and engineering on that. That'll be the biggest project, I think. Everything else will be maintenance. The jail's getting kind of old, so, the sheriff's office is doing a good job about figuring out what's getting to the end of life. We'll be looking at freezers, and we've done some stuff with wash machines, and the kind of washers they use are not what you get at Lowe's, so they're pretty big dollar items. So real good working relationship with the sheriff's office to pick out those items. And then with the completion of this building, we have surplus 4 buildings in the process. So those are now back on the tax roll, and we'll be developing different ways. Really, the only thing is just upgrading the courthouse is the biggest one I can think of outside of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for everybody for coming out, and let's don't forget the first topic. We need everybody's help to get the information out about the House bills. We need to approve all 10 of them, so we need y'all's help as well. We need a lot of y'all's help. So, and we're gonna do our duty up here, but we need that to pass for our seniors and for the future. We're all gonna be there one day, so we definitely need that to pass.
Thank everybody for coming again. Have a good night.